Coney, C-O-N-Y, can generate massive income. That part is real. But income alone doesn't tell whether an all-in strategy actually works. Instead of opinions, I built the spreadsheet, dividends, drip, volatility, and total return. Today we're walking through exactly what happens when you commit 100%. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Simply Money. Let's get into the spreadsheet because this is where the story actually gets interesting. For those who have followed the channel, you know that I do these all-in scenarios. For those that are new, let me give you a quick overview. What we're doing is we're hypothetically showing if I took my entire income portfolio and threw it all into one fund. Today's fund, Coney, C-O-N-Y, we're simulating what would happen if I was all in on this since inception. We're going to see some interesting things on this one because it doesn't act as the normal funds we've looked at have. So keep an eye out for the difference as we walk through this. In your opinion, before we get started, leave it in the comments below. Do you think dripping 100% always gives a better total return? Yes or no? And why do you think that? Let's get into it now. August 15th, 2023 is when we're starting this. Now you got to understand Coney has gone through the split 10-to-1. But this is all adjusted. You'll see the price showing what it actually was, but everything's adjusted to show what the income and the cash flow and the total returns would be. I've made the adjustments down below. We'll get to that shortly. But if you see anything that you disagree with, leave that in the comments. I like being challenged. I like being corrected if something is not correct here. But this is a pretty amazing fund as we dig into this one. We're looking at this $525,000 hypothetical investment. Would have got us 2,656 shares at this initiating price of $197.65. Now we're going to be looking at this. This is actually a monthly payer to begin with. It does switch later on as well to a weekly payer. We'll be evaluating that. We'll be looking at that and the changes. But as we come down, you can see the share price went up quite a bit, and then it has started declining very rapidly. As we come down here to November 28, 2025, our last weekly update, we're at 47.80. If you were to adjust that to prior to the split, it would actually be $4.78. But again, this has all been adjusted. And then you can see what the price is now being adjusted. It is at 47.04. The decline in the share price has been negative 76.49%. This is a big decline. But you can also see here in the beginning of October, it began paying weekly. And so you'll see a decline in the weekly payments versus what it was monthly. Coming over here to column C, this is where you see the dividend amount. And this thing was just pouring out distributions early on. Look at these amounts. $12 got up to $26 right here. Look at January 5th, 2024, share price of $234. If you were fully dripping, you would have been up to 3,657 shares, paying $26.93 per share. That would have been an $88,000 monthly payment on this portfolio. Now, we're going to look at some other things that you have to consider with this, so please don't take that as advice to go all in on Coney. As I always say, this is not financial advice. This is for information and educational purposes only. I would not go all in on Coney or any fund. I'm doing this as a hypothetical just to show you the impact that this can have on a portfolio, positive or negative. My opinion is really not important here. What's important is what is your risk tolerance? What are your goals? What is it you want to accomplish in your investing life? But as we look at this, this can be very tempting for people as they see these massive distributions early on. And you're looking at monthly payments in $30,000, $88,000, gets up here to $114,000 because you're accumulating. This is 100% drip. You're accumulating massive amounts of shares as this is paying out. And as this share price is dropping, you're getting more shares with these massive payouts. And look at this here in November of 2024, payout of $149,000 on this for the month. That is just incredible, massive amounts. But you're up to 8,367 shares here. Again, this is adjusted for the split. But when we come down, you can see these payments begin to decrease significantly. And then we get into the weekly payments, when it drops from the 70, 62,000 down to 19,000. Again, you're talking weekly, 19,000, 26,000, but we continue to drop. If this was a monthly payment, you're only looking at $1.60, where here you're looking at about just under $5 versus what it was paying up here of $27. You can see a significant drop in that. It has averaged per month $9.56 per month on distribution. That's taking it from the very beginning, how many months it's been around, and dividing that by the number of shares here. That is the average payment that's been given out. And here on the full drip, again, you're seeing the amount of these payments and how massive they are. Even though they're decreasing, your share price is decreasing, but your share volume is just exponentially growing. You've added 21,611 shares because it has distributed over $2 million in this time frame. But this has all been reinvested as the share price has dropped. But when it brings you over to the share value, you can see it's just had massive growth early on. Had some dips here as the price dropped significantly from its peak and then began dropping. It started climbing up again. But again, you're adding more shares. It's helping stabilize this return. And we come down to the bottom. And again, this is, since August of 2023, you're looking at $1 million portfolio now, a gain of almost $500,000 and $491,000. Keep that in mind. I want you looking at this right here. And then we're going to jump over here to our 50% drip. This is where it gets interesting. With a 50% drip, you have your full drip amount here. So 50% is half of it. And we're tracking the half amount of the drip. Now, again, it's going to be smaller than half of the full drip down here because you don't have as many shares. The first drip is always exactly half because you have the same number of shares, what you started with. But you're buying more shares with 50% of your drip. Your share accumulation over here, you can see it's not going up as rapidly because you're only reinvesting half of the drip. And so the drip becomes smaller and smaller comparison to the full drip. But you're still getting these cash payouts. So the $16,000, you're getting a cash payout to use, to live on, to reinvest in some other fund. And you're also getting the $16,000 to reinvest into buying more shares. As we come down here, you can see, again, these are great payouts per month as you're getting those. We get down to the weekly. Let's come down here. Now you're looking at 3,000, 5,000. This last one's the lowest at 1,500. It's been a very underperforming this last couple weeks here, but it's still weekly getting $1,500 off that. Here's what I want you to look at. $662,000 in payouts that have been reinvested, and that has accumulated 7,500 more shares. But you've also gotten the $662 in cash. Now keep that in mind as we get ready to look at the total returns here momentarily. Here on the value of your drip, 50% drip, you have dropped $163,000 in your portfolio balance. Now, instead of having $525,000, you have $361,000. But again, you've collected $662,000 in distributions. Last column here, when we go to the zero drip, you're taking the full distribution and you're just taking that for expenses or whatever you want to use it for. And you can see as you go down, it gets much smaller. Look at this 114 verse 74. Look at this one, 149 verse 53. Because this 149 is on the accumulated 8,367 shares, where this 53,000 is still on this 2,656 shares. Again, still a very healthy distribution on a monthly basis. We come down here to the bottom and see that this has paid out $863,000 in distributions. Now your portfolio is down to $123,000. But if you're not living on this and you're using this to generate income to invest in other funds, you've generated a massive amount of income to reinvest in other places. We'll look at that as well. But that is a portfolio balance drop of $76,000. Now, this is what I want to look at. When we look at the total return, we have the full drip. we gained $491,000 in portfolio balance. That's a 93.6% total return. Now, with the 50% drip, we received $662,000, but we lost $163,000 in value. That's a $498,000 total gain. It's actually a higher total return than the full drip. Not by a lot, but by just over 1%. And that makes a lot of people wonder, how can you gain more with a half drip versus a full drip? And it's because of this right here. This cash, as this price has plummeted, you have locked in this cash. You're not taking loss on that. Where over here, even though you're gaining many, many more shares, you're losing greater and greater value very rapidly. Even though you're getting this cash, you're putting it into the portfolio and it's dropping in its value because the cash was handed to you, but then it was losing value in the share price. Where half of that in the 50-50 drip, you're locking in that higher price back up here when you got this $16,000 distribution. That's locked in. It hasn't lost its value by being bought into more shares that have gone from 192 down to $46. Now, would that continue? I don't know. We'd have to see if this price continues to plummet that fast. It may be more advantageous to do a 50-50 drip. Now, with no drip, you're not getting any additional shares to help maintain that balance. So your overall return, you have the $863,000 that you have received, but you've also lost $401,000 in value. That's an 87.99% return. Again, excellent return on all fronts. Your average annual return is right at 40%. And if you took the full distribution, it'd be right at 37% in, 28 months time frame. That's an average annual return. Not too bad. What we do over here is we have this opportunity to adjust our drip to how we want it. And we often do this in the scenarios to see, we started out with $525,000 and we want to end right around $525,000, give or take. Now, I'm not going to tweak it to the very percentage, but we got it pretty close here with a 70% drip and 30% keeping distribution. As you can see, this is the amount here in this column that you're reinvesting and buying more shares. And this is the amount you're keeping. We come down to the bottom, you can see we're maintaining the green. We peaked right here, but it has dropped pretty heavily since then. We actually had one short period where we were negative. But over this 28-month period, if I was invested this way, and again, I'm not saying to invest 100% into Coney. Please don't take that as what I'm telling you here. But if you were to do that and you're at 70% drip and keeping 30%, you've received $1.1 million that you've reinvested. So you've reinvested and bought 9,163 more shares. Your portfolio has grown $24,000. But in the meantime, you've received $480,000, or on average, $18,000 per month. A very excellent return, in my opinion. I'd be very happy if my portfolio was up $24,000 in 2.5 years while taking out almost the same amount that I originally invested. That would be extremely healthy. This is a fund, if you were to do this, even if you were using partial fund, say you're doing 50,000 of your portfolio. This is one you definitely want to control and look at what is most advantageous for the drip scenario. Maybe it's 60-40. I don't know. You have to look and see which one, because a lot of people, again, even in accumulation stage, think, oh, I'm going 100% drip. Doesn't always pay off. Sometimes a slighter drip percentage will increase your total return, and you have to evaluate that. You have to watch that. And that's where you have to be strategic if you're accumulating. When the price is really high, that's maybe when you want to take out the full drip. That's when you want to take the full distribution. And when the price drops, that's when you take the distribution and reinvest it, because you're getting more shares at a lower price. There's a lot you can do with this. This is just to show the power of owning these types of shares. Again, you have to be very strategic. These aren't just buy and hold shares. You have to be more engaged with them. You have to be more active with them. but this does share a lot of information. It gives you a lot of ability to adjust this. If you like playing around with this and you want to get a copy of this sheet, you can go to the link down below, the Buy Me a Coffee. There's a link there. You can go to the shop page, and this is the Coney drip spreadsheet. You can get a copy of that, and then it'll be your copy to play around with, adjust the amount that you're investing, when you started investing, and it'll all update for you. And then you can play around with what percentage you want to invest or reinvest there. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Believe it or not, 80% of the viewers are not subscribed. You may think you're subscribed, but don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button as well. It really helps the channel out. And leave your comments. What are your thoughts on Coney? Are you a owner of Coney? Are you thinking about it? What do you think about this 100% drip not actually returning as much as the 50% drip? Do you know other funds that are like that? Leave them in the comments below, and we'll take a look at those as well. Again, thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time on Simply Money.